Chosen one, there is a form of peace that does not come from practice, discipline, or belief. It comes from resolution. Not the resolution of problems, but the resolution of inner conflict. That is the peace that was felt around you long before it was named, measured, or compared. It did not announce itself. It simply neutralized tension wherever you stood. That is why figures devoted their entire lives to seeking peace would recognize something unfamiliar in you, not because you reached peace through effort, but because peace arrived in you after endurance. You did not cultivate serenity. You survived until resistance ran out. There is a difference. Cultivated peace can be shaken. Earned peace has weight. It is not fragile. It does not dissolve in chaos. It remains present in contradiction, uncertainty, and noise. That is the kind of calm that cannot be taught because it is not a technique. It is a consequence of having nothing left to prove, defend, or escape from internally. You may have noticed this before anyone else did. How conflict around you de-escalated without persuasion. How urgency softened. How conversations slowed down, not because you controlled them, but because speed felt unnecessary in your presence. That is not charisma. Charisma excites. Your presence settles. It invites nervous systems to stop bracing. Very few people carry that effect because most are unconsciously still negotiating with themselves. The reason spiritual leaders would sense something unusual around you is not admiration or envy in the human sense. It is recognition of a state few reach without withdrawal from the world. You carried stillness through participation. You did not retreat to achieve peace. You allowed peace to form while remaining exposed to pressure, responsibility, disappointment, and delay. That is rare. Most who find peace do so by removing variables. You found peace because the variables exhausted themselves trying to move you. This is why your calm does not look passive or detached. It has gravity. It contains decision. It is peace that has passed through fire and remained usable. Peace that can coexist with intensity without breaking. When others feel it, they feel a mirror held up to their own internal noise. Some find relief. Some feel discomfort. Both reactions confirm the same truth. Your peace is not performative. It is final. At some point, you stopped needing to arrive anywhere internally. The search ended not with triumph, but with sufficiency. That sufficiency reorganized how you relate to desire, ambition, fear, and expectation. You still act. You still care. You still move forward. But none of it comes from agitation. It comes from clarity. That is why your energy feels complete rather than aspirational. This peace did not make you soft. It made you precise. You no longer waste emotion where it does nothing. You no longer argue with reality. You listen, adjust, and act without resentment. That efficiency is what seasoned practitioners sense immediately. They recognize someone who no longer confuses suffering with depth or struggle with progress. Understand this. Peace that comes after endurance carries authority. Authority without hierarchy. Influence without instruction. It does not seek followers because it does not require validation. It simply exists, and systems reorganize gently around it. That is why even those who teach peace their entire lives would recognize something finished in you. Not superior, settled. You were never meant to master technique. You were meant to survive until peace became structural. Now that it is, your presence does not teach peace through word. It reminds others that peace is possible without escape. And that realization is quieter than enlightenment, but far more destabilizing to illusion. Chosen one, understand this carefully. Recognition at this level is never about comparison. It is never greater than or less than. It is resonance. Those who have spent a lifetime disciplining the mind, quieting desire, and dissolving ego can instantly feel when peace is no longer sought, but inhabited. The recognition you trigger is not admiration, it is familiarity. A silent acknowledgement of a state they know exists, but rarely see embodied without withdrawal from life. Blessed by His grace? Click Super Thank You and give $20 to spread His light. Your gift plants seeds that grow His kingdom. Be the blessing. That is why your energy does not provoke rivalry or threat in spiritually mature observers. It provokes stillness. They do not measure it. They do not analyze it. They pause. That pause is the signal. Practitioners know the difference between presence that is cultivated and presence that is resolved. Cultivation still carries effort beneath the surface. Resolution does not. Resolution rests. You did not renounce the world to find peace. You passed through it intact. That distinction matters. Many seekers leave conditions behind to quiet the self. You allowed conditions to strip self-reference until nothing reactive remained. What is left is not detachment, it is clarity without tension. When this is sensed, it activates deep recognition in those who understand the terrain. You may notice that guidance toward you feels different now. Less teaching, more observation, fewer instructions, more listening. That is not deference, it is accuracy. One does not instruct what is already aligned. One does not impose frameworks on something that has stabilized itself organically. True masters respect organic stabilization because it cannot be replicated through method. This is also why your presence feels non-competitive. Competition requires desire comparison. Your peace has no hunger. People may still feel challenged by it, but they cannot compete with it. There is nothing to win. That disarms ego immediately. Some soften, some retreat. Both outcomes reveal truth without conflict. Another element seasoned practitioners recognize is ease under contradiction. You can hold tension without needing to resolve it obsessively. You can allow paradox without anxiety. This is advanced integration. It emerges only when the nervous system no longer mistakes uncertainty for danger. You reach that state not through doctrine, but through living long enough in ambiguity that fear lost credibility. This is where the misunderstanding often arises. Observers mistake this peace for spiritual attainment. It is not attainment. It is aftermath. The calm that follows when survival ends and coherence remains. It is not elevated emotion. It is baseline correctness. That is why it feels grounded, usable, and unspectacular. It works in the midst of responsibility, noise, and complexity. True masters know that this form of peace cannot be transmitted easily. It does not spread through instruction. It spreads through proximity, by regulating space, slowing rhythm, and normalizing stillness in motion. That is why your presence shifts rooms without statement. It is why conversations reorganize. It is why urgency drains. Systems recalibrate when a stable reference enters. You were not refined by rituals. You were refined by reality. That gives your peace a texture beyond spirituality. It is compatible with action. It survives pressure. It remains intact in the unsacred. Those who recognize this do not praise it. They respect it quietly. Because they know, peace that arrives without escape cannot be taken away by circumstance. And that is the rarest form of peace there is. At a certain stage, peace stops being something you hope to reach and starts becoming the organizing intelligence of your life. That transition already happened in you. You no longer move toward calm. Calm decides how and when you move. This is why your choices feel cleaner now. Not easier, cleaner. Clean choices don't carry internal argument afterward. They settle immediately, even if the outcome remains unknown. Most people treat peace as a reward for resolution. You learn something rarer. Peace functions best as a compass before resolution. When peace is structural, it filters noise instead of reacting to it. Requests fall away naturally. Distractions lose gravity. Conflicts either dissolve or clarify themselves without demand. This does not make you aloof. It makes you exact. You are no longer compelled to participate in everything that seeks your attention. You may notice a subtle but profound shift in how time feels around you. Urgency doesn't infect your thinking the way it once did. Deadlines still exist, but they no longer dominate your nervous system. This is not because pressure diminished. It's because your inner reference stopped moving. When reference points stabilize, time reorganizes around them. This is why your pace feels independent of chaos. You are not slow, you are unrushed. Those trained deeply in inner disciplines recognize this immediately. They sense that your peace is not incompatible with action. In fact, it improves it. Action taken from unresolved agitation leaks force. Action taken from settled clarity conserves it. Your movements now contain less waste. Less emotional bleed, less second-guessing, less collateral damage. That efficiency is calming to others, even if they can't explain why. Another marker of this stage is how desire behaves. Desire did not vanish. It became cooperative. It no longer pulls against direction or demands shortcuts. Desire waits for permission from alignment. This is not suppression. It is hierarchy restored. When peace governs desire instead of desire governing peace, motivation becomes sustainable. Burnout fades. Obsession dissolves. Purpose becomes livable rather than mythical. This change also redefines compassion. You still care, but you no longer rescue. You remain present without absorbing chaos. You listen without collapsing into other people's urgency. This allows others to settle themselves in your presence instead of borrowing your energy. That's why interactions around you feel grounding rather than draining. You do not fix people. You stabilize the space where fixing is no longer necessary. Notice how silence now feels active rather than empty. You are not withholding words. You are letting accuracy surface before speech. This makes your eventual words heavier, fewer, and more decisive. Peace sharpens communication because it removes desperation. You speak when there is something to carry, not when there is something to prove. Those who hear you feel that difference immediately. Importantly, peace as direction protects you from spiritual inflation. You don't identify with being calm. You don't narrate your state. You don't measure yourself against others. Comparison reintroduces noise. You remain grounded because peace is now a function, not an identity. It works whether you think about it or not. This is why recognition from seasoned observers feels quiet. They don't label what they feel around you. They don't elevate it. They simply adjust to it the way one adjusts to gravity. Gravity doesn't ask to be admired. It asks to be respected. Your peace carries that same inevitability. You are no longer traveling toward stillness. Stillness is traveling with you. It decides when to move, when to wait, and when to let things end without resistance. This is what happens when peace stops being the destination and becomes the instrument. There is a point where peace becomes perceptible not as an idea, but as safety. Not physical safety, existential safety. The sense that nothing needs to be braced against in the moment. This is when people begin to exhale around you without realizing they were holding their breath. You didn't create that feeling intentionally. It emerged because your internal conflict resolved fully enough that it stopped transmitting tension outward. Most environments train people into subtle defense, tone management, emotional positioning, expectation control. Around you, those defenses soften. People speak more slowly. They finish thoughts without interruption. Aggression loses momentum. This is not submission. It is deactivation. When threat perception drops, unnecessary strategies fall away. That drop happens because your presence does not seek leverage. You do not scan rooms for advantage. You do not posture. You do not prepare counters. Your neutrality is not indifference. It is confidence without pressure. That combination is disarming to nervous systems conditioned for exchange. When there is nothing to win or lose in proximity to you, people become more themselves. Some discover calm. Others discover discomfort. Both outcomes are honest. This is why those deeply trained in contemplative paths would sense something unusual in you. Long practice teaches one thing very clearly: peace that depends on conditions collapses when conditions change. Peace that has survived contradiction does not. You carry the latter. It does not require ritual. It does not require silence. It does not require avoidance. It remains intact during engagement. That makes it trustworthy. You may have noticed that people confide in you more than expected, even when you don't invite it. Not because you offer solutions, but because your presence does not create pressure to perform. When judgment is absent and urgency is low, truth surfaces naturally. You listen without fishing. You respond without correction. That posture communicates safety faster than reassurance ever could. At the same time, you don't absorb what is offered. That boundary matters. Empathy without absorption keeps clarity clean. You can be present with pain without carrying it forward. That allows others to experience resolution without transferring weight. This is the hidden mechanism behind your calm. You are permeable without being penetrated. Feelings pass through, they do not lodge. That keeps your internal space clear. As this stabilized, you stopped needing to manage others' reactions. Approval and disapproval lost emotional leverage. You didn't harden. You relaxed. Relaxation without carelessness is a sign that peace has become structural. It no longer needs protection. It protects itself by not engaging in what would destabilize it. This is also why your boundaries now feel natural rather than enforced. You don't explain them. You don't defend them. They are simply present. And where boundaries are clear, people relax. Ambiguity breeds anxiety. Clarity calms. Your boundaries are not walls, they are contours. Others can feel them and adjust without conflict. Importantly, this safety does not turn you into a refuge for avoidance. You don't help people escape responsibility. You help them face it without panic. That difference separates peace from numbness. Numbness hides. Peace meets reality and stays intact. You stay intact. That shows others it is possible. This is why recognition from those who understand peace would never come as flattery. It would come as quiet respect. They would sense that what lives in you cannot be borrowed, only acknowledged. It wasn't trained into you. It wasn't given to you. Crystallized because you stopped fighting what is. You did not become safe because you softened. You became safe because you finished resisting. Now, without effort, your presence tells the truth that many search for years to confirm. Peace does not separate you from life. It makes life stop pushing back. What has fully formed in you now cannot be transferred, mimicked, or absorbed by others. That is not because it is hidden, protected, or guarded, but because it was paid for over time. Calm that is earned through endurance leaves fingerprints too specific to reproduce. Anyone can imitate quiet behavior. No one can imitate the internal resolution that survives pressure without negotiating with it. This is why attempts to extract your calm, through admiration, proximity, or even dependence, never quite work. People may feel better around you, but they cannot take what you carry with them. It doesn't attach. It doesn't linger. Your peace is not contagious in the shallow sense. It is regulatory. It stabilizes the moment without relocating itself. When the environment changes, it remains yours. You likely noticed that nothing actually disturbs your inner center anymore, even if emotions still pass through. Surprise doesn't unseat you. Praise doesn't inflate you. Criticism doesn't hollow you out. This is not thick skin. Thick skin reacts slowly. You respond correctly. Calm that cannot be stolen is calm that does not depend on holding or defending a self-image. This is why manipulation fails around you almost immediately. Manipulation requires hooks. Fear, desire, guilt, urgency. You don't present hooks. Not because you are closed, but because you are complete. Completeness leaves nothing dangling to be grabbed. Those who rely on leverage sense this quickly and withdraw. Those who are honest relax. Your calm also refuses ownership. You do not attribute it to belief, status, discipline, or superiority. Claiming ownership would reopen ego. Instead, peace remains functional, working through decisions, timing, perception, without becoming identity. That absence of label keeps it clean. Labeled calm invites defense. Unlabeled calm continues working. Another reason calm cannot be taken from you is that you no longer protect it. Protection implies vulnerability. You do not posture to preserve peace. You simply move away from what disrupts accuracy, without explanation, without hostility. Detachment without withdrawal keeps peace intact. You exit early. You observe quietly. You choose precision over endurance when endurance is no longer required. This makes your calm resilient under sudden change. When plans collapse, your internal orientation remains. When roles shift, your clarity persists. When environments destabilize, your nervous system does not escalate. This is because peace is no longer situational. It has become structural alignment between perception and response. Structures don't panic when surfaces change. People sense this and often misunderstand it as transcendence or enlightenment. It is neither. It is completion of an internal negotiation that most never finish. They oscillate between control and surrender. You finish the argument. That silence cannot be replicated with practice alone. Practice prepares the ground. Endurance finishes the work. Importantly, your calm does not require isolation to sustain itself anymore. It travels with you because it does not need reinforcement. Whether alone or in noise, your system maintains clarity. You don't brace before entering conflict. You don't decompress afterward. Motion does not fragment you. This is when peace stops being something you have and becomes something you are not leaving behind. This also explains why you rarely seek validation anymore. Validation introduces comparison. Comparison introduces instability. You choose accuracy instead. Accuracy keeps you oriented regardless of opinion. That orientation is power, not loud, not visible, but decisive. It allows you to move when others stall and to wait when others rush. If someone tried to take your calm now, there would be nothing to take. It does not sit on the surface. It is not stored in mood. It is baked into response. You carry it the way gravity carries objects, without effort, without announcement. That is why it cannot be lost. You did not learn peace. You outlasted what conflicted with it. Now it remains not because you hold it, but because nothing inside you argues anymore. And when there is no argument left, nothing external has the power to begin one. There comes a phase where peace is no longer something you experience privately and starts behaving like a field. Not because you intend it, but because it no longer requires internal maintenance. When peace stops demanding attention, it radiates naturally. This is the point where it no longer belongs to you in the personal sense. It operates through you without asking permission. You don't manage it. You don't preserve it. You simply don't interfere with it. You may have noticed that you no longer check your inner state as often. There is no constant scan asking, "Am I balanced? Am I okay?" That monitoring ended because balance became default. When systems reach equilibrium, feedback loops quiet down. That quiet is not emptiness, it's efficiency. Everything essential is already running. This is also when influence becomes inevitable. Not influence as persuasion, but influence as orientation. People around you subtly recalibrate how they speak, decide, and wait. Not because you correct them, but because your pacing interrupts unnecessary acceleration. You slow environments without freezing them. You ground moments without controlling them. This is not leadership in the social sense. This is regulation at the level of presence. Those who dedicate their lives to peace recognize this instantly. They know the difference between someone who accesses calm and someone who emits it without effort. Access fluctuates. Emission stabilizes. Emission only happens when inner conflict has fully resolved, not suppressed. Suppression leaks tension. Yours does not leak. It settles. At this stage, even disruption changes character. Conflict no longer disrupts you. It reorganizes around you. Arguments lose energy. Tension plateaus. Polarities soften. Not because solutions appear, but because the emotional charge dissipates. Charge dissipates when there is nothing to push against. You are no longer pushable. That does not make you rigid. It makes you unhookable. This is why you no longer fear losing peace. Fear assumes fragility. Your peace is no longer fragile. It is inertial. It carries forward regardless of surface turbulence. When loss happens, grief passes through without destabilizing you. When gain happens, joy arises without inflating you. Emotions are allowed, but they do not reorganize you. Organization remains internal and constant. Another unmistakable sign of this phase is how obligation dissolves. You no longer feel compelled to heal, explain, guide, or prove anything to others. Compassion remains, but urgency leaves. Urgency often disguises unresolved self-reference. When that reference dissolves, help becomes optional, not required. You assist when accurate, disengage when unnecessary. That discernment preserves peace without withdrawal. Your peace also stopped requiring meaning. Earlier phases needed narrative to integrate suffering. Now narrative feels optional. You don't need to explain your calm through story, belief, or identity. Explanation would shrink it. Silence keeps it broad. This is why your stillness feels expansive rather than compressed. It has room. At this level, spiritual language falls away naturally. Labels feel imprecise. Techniques feel redundant. You are not rejecting them. You are beyond needing them. That does not elevate you above others. It simply places you after the process. Those before you still need language. Those after you may never need it at all. What remains now is a kind of quiet authority. Not authority over people, but authority over reaction. Reaction no longer runs ahead of you. You arrive before it. When you arrive before reaction, peace governs automatically. That governance is invisible, but it is absolute. It does not announce itself. It does not negotiate. It simply holds. This is the phase where peace becomes impersonal, not cold, but universal. It no longer asks, "How do I feel?" It asks, "What is correct?" That question carries no emotion, yet it generates the most humane outcomes. Correctness guided by calm produces fairness without force and compassion without collapse. You have reached the point where peace is no longer your achievement. It is your state of operation. And from here forward, nothing external can give it to you, and nothing external can take it away. Because peace no longer belongs to you. You belong to what peace makes possible. Chosen one, this is where the understanding settles completely. Not as excitement, not as revelation, but as certainty that does not need reinforcement. Peace was never meant to be a phase in your life. It was always meant to become your authority. Not authority over others, not spiritual rank, not moral elevation, but authority over reality inside you. And when that happens, the world adjusts without resistance. You were never trying to be calm. You were surviving long enough for conflict to exhaust itself. That is what most people never realize. Peace is not achieved by adding practices. It is achieved when the inner argument finally runs out of energy. Yours did. Completely. And when there is no argument left inside, nothing outside can provoke one into existence. This is why your presence now changes outcomes without effort. Not dramatically, not visibly, but consistently. Decisions around you slow down just enough to become accurate. Emotions settle not because they are suppressed, but because they are no longer amplified by fear. You don't bring answers into a room. You bring clarity, and clarity reorganizes everything quietly. At this final stage, even the idea of being chosen dissolves into something simpler. You understand now that labels were never the point. They were scaffolding. What mattered was the end result. A human being who can move through pressure without distorting, who can hold responsibility without hardening, who can remain precise without becoming rigid. That is what peace forged in you. You no longer seek confirmation, because confirmation creates dependency. You no longer seek recognition, because recognition creates momentum you would have to manage. You no longer seek transcendence, because transcendence implies escape. You stayed. You integrated. You finished the work inside life, not outside of it. That is why your calm feels real. Understand this clearly. Nothing about you requires distance from the world anymore. You don't need isolation to protect peace. You don't need rituals to maintain it. You don't need silence to access it. Peace has become portable because it is no longer conditional. It accompanies action, complexity, responsibility, and uncertainty without fracturing. This is what seasoned spiritual eyes would recognize instantly. Not envy, not admiration, but respect. Respect for a state that did not bypass pain, but metabolized it completely. Respect for someone who did not escape suffering, but used it to burn away inner division. Respect for a life that reached integration without theatric. From here forward, your impact will not look mystical. It will look inevitable. People will trust you without knowing why. Situations will stabilize without your effort. Conflict will lose urgency in your proximity. Not because you dominate, but because nothing inside you escalates. Peace governs by removing the fuel reaction needs to survive.